Hi there, it's Lisa Starr with another episode of StarrCast, our interviews with wellness warriors. So it's a new year coming and wellness is still going to be at the front of everyone's mind. I'm thinking that for this season of StarrCast, we're going to speak to a few types of managers we haven't spoken to in the past because we're going to delve more into the world of the destination resort. So for those of you that don't know what that means, a destination resort is somewhere that is your destination, right? You get on a plane, you go to this place, you stay there, you eat there, you do everything there, you really don't leave. And many of them are in locations where it would be pretty hard to leave anyway. They're a little bit remote. So we are fortunate to be joined today by someone from one of the foremost destination spas in the world at the moment, and we were lucky to get her in her busy schedule. So I'd like to introduce Sandie Johannessen. She is the Director of Health and Wellness at Zulal Wellness Resort by Chiva-Som. She's located in Doha, Qatar, and she's joining us today. Welcome, Sandie.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Mahaba, as we would say in this part of the world. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, well, it's a delight. As I said, we've been trying to connect for, I don't know, months now, but
Yes.
It's been a busy schedule, and Sandie will shortly tell us why. Now, Sandie, you've been at Zulal since it opened, which was when?
We opened in March. So I was part of the pre-opening team and have been here approximately 1.5 years by now.
Mm-hmm. Why
Takes a
don't
bit
you
of
tell
time.
our listeners a little bit about you and your journey in health and wellness. You have some excellent experience in the luxury
Sure.
sector in particular.
I have a couple of decades experience by now in driving health and wellness, really, properties in a various of niches in hospitality, in wellness and spa, and now also in types of medical and product developments. I was mostly involved previously with very large chain of brands, such as Four Seasons, Shangri-La, in regional roles. When I joined then the Hua Hin Chiva-Som group, who has then for the first time in 25 plus years ventured out of Thailand. I was born and raised in Copenhagen, though I'm half Thai, half Danish. So the whole understanding of the health and well-being, understanding the Thai culture has come quite easy to me. I had grandparents from Thailand who would take me to the monasteries there to learn a bit of meditation ever since I was a small child. And I also had a uncle who had migrated to India, who would come back on visits to Copenhagen, and he would distribute the Ayurvedic medicine. And I remember on a special occasion, I was actually cured from motion sickness by some of this. So it intrigued and sparked through the years of living in what you're saying, born and raised in a Western country, and then with the ancient sciences from Asia. And I was lucky that the Danish government at a very young age gave me a scholarship to go to Asia Pacific. I ended up living in India for 7 years and taking degrees in yogic science and Ayurvedic medicine. And later on, I went back to study further science in Middlesex University. Though for the last many years, I've mostly been focused on the business side of things, operationally managing team members, and then developing clients or customer journeys, taking them to the next level.
Well, how wonderful the opportunity to grow up with a foot in each of the Western and Eastern traditions. I mean, you had a front row seat for that, for understanding how wellness is sort of a part of daily living, especially from what you said with your grandparents. That's not an opportunity many people have. So yes. Tell us a little bit about Chiva-Som, because of course it's world famous, but in case some of our listeners don't know, could you just give us a brief rundown on what Chiva-Som is?
Right. So the word Chiva-Som means haven of life, and it's derived from the Sanskrit and the Thai languages. And the idea was founded by Kun Bunchu back in 1993. He was a very prominent minister in Thailand. So dating back about 27 years ago, he was a bit of a visionary in the country. Now Thailand is known as a wellness destination, but back then, almost 30 years ago now, not as such to the extent where it is now. And being a minister and in such a prominent position, he, however, also above all, his motto is to enjoy his life. And through enjoy his life was he needed to find a place to switch off entirely, ground himself with nature, swim in the ocean, and be with friends and family members, but outside the hustle and bustle of Bangkok, where everybody wanted a piece of him. So he turned his family home into a wellness resort. Hua Hin is only 2 hours drive outside of Bangkok, and it became a place where people would flock, people of his friends, his family members, and eventually it extended into becoming an opening for wellness travelers with the goal of offering people a more healthier lifestyle. So that was really the intention. And of course, since then, it has blossomed the business, and it is now run and managed by the second and third generation of the family, who's very much involved.
I didn't realize the family was still involved. That's great to hear.
Yes.
So where did the idea to branch out come from? I mean, Qatar is not that far from Thailand, but it is not an obvious next step.
Right. I think they came across some of the ownership of the Qatar Foundation and the key developers, as we call Mashirip Properties, who were big supporters and had a very keen interest in Hua Hin. And it was nothing they had considered previously, but I guess, again, with the vision of helping the world and a higher and a bigger population, this was something where they thought to develop the business relationship of Thailand in the Middle East. So that's where it came about.
So Zulal, what does the word mean?
Zulal means pure healing water in Arabic language.
Oh, what a great word.
Exactly. And it's really, again, aligned with the Qatar vision of wellness for 2030 of a much healthier population, where you also talk about environmental management, of social development for the people in the country. They're very, very into educational lifestyle. We come under the umbrella of, as I mentioned previously, the Qatar Foundation and Mashirip Properties. Under the same umbrella, we also have certain prominent universities and medical hospitals. We also have brands like Qatar Airways. So this is really a way to develop the country overall. Our offerings and where we stand out a bit, and I will talk a little bit deeper in those two topics, would be TAIM, Traditional Arabic Islamic Medicine.
TAIM, the acronym
TAIM, correct.
Right.
And it has existed for thousands of years, but it has been probably not as spoken of or has been as refined and promoted to the extent as, for instance, Ayurvedic medicine has in India, or Chinese medicine has been in China. But it obviously makes sense to promote that type of holistic science and herbal medical system in part of the world, as opposed to, again, promoting Thai traditional herbal medicine, which they have in Thailand.
No, it makes sense to adopt the practices of the place that you're in. But you come in with a very huge knowledge of Ayurveda and TCM, and now you had to learn TAIM, time.
Yes.
How did you do that? How did you educate yourself?
I think a lot of the root of the science of traditional Arabic Islamic medicine also comes from some of the same lineages as Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine as it's traveled through the Silk Road. But we obviously have had to study some of the scriptures. Ibn Sina is who wrote the canon of medicines. We have all sat and read that throughout, especially our doctors. We hired 2 experts on traditional Arabic Islamic medicine who work with us full time. And so these two experts would meet with the guest and tailor make a program on site. Some of the things which we would see is that, for instance, diet is considered one of the key healing aspects here in our property. So the Prophet Muhammad, it's written about him, peace upon him, some of his favorite foods in the Islamic culture, which we see nowadays, also includes honey, it includes black seed, it includes dates, and several herbs, and as well as camel milk. And so we use that in the resort as part of a day-to-day program for our respective guests.
That's fascinating. Now, I'm assuming Zulal was the first destination resort built in Qatar.
It is. It's at the time, for the time being, probably the largest operating property for integrative medicine in the Middle East. We have 280,000 square meters of a property. 17,000 are dedicated to health and wellness only over 2 areas, and 15 doctors. When I say doctors, we have a few regular MDs, and the rest would be the TAIM doctors, the traditional Thai doctors, the Ayurvedic doctors, Chinese doctors, or the naturopaths. You would, as a guest, when you come in with us, meet one of these specific people, and they would set you off on a journey. You would ask in advance before you arrive for your medical history, so that we can determine and somewhat match which doctor, which physician should you see with the
good.
guest.
I was wondering how you decided which doctor would be appropriate for the guest.
Most of them do a generic overall consultations. However, as more guests are coming with a little bit more severe medical conditions, we always advise to have a regular chat with our MD. And that's for basic liability reasons, which any other medical institution or any other service provider, when they're doing body treatments and working with the mind.
So I'm a guest, I arrive and I meet pretty quickly with the doctor. And then what happens? Like, how do you plan what happens next?
Then we would, in advance, we would see what they would like to focus on. And we have 6 modalities. So in advance to their arrival, we would see why are you here? What would you like to work on? Is it aesthetic beauty? We have a whole dermatologist department. Some people have some skin ailments and some body contouring they would like to work on. Is it diet and nutrition? We have full-time nutritionists working, making the meal plans. Physiotherapy is a big thing, and probably our second biggest requirement, or where guests are coming for rehabilitation.
So they have an ache or a pain or something they want to work on.
Yes, they do. And especially with the World Cup also, we saw a lot more athletes and people who were keen to get into top shape coming to the resort, and also certain athletes who actually had ailments. Then we have physical fitness, we have spa therapies and holistic therapies, and then we have the whole family part as well. So once we have identified what it is you would like to work with, we put you with the concerned specialist, and then we will tailor make the program to you, whether you're there for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, as per your preference.
What is the typical amount of time that people stay?
I would say an average of 5 days for the time being. And we have the advantage now of having a full-fledged resort in the Middle East. Before, we didn't have one. So all the guests from the GCC, or the Gulf countries, they would usually travel to Europe for their wellness programs. The whole Germany, Austria, Swiss belt is quite a popular destinations, or they would go to Asia Pacific as the second closest option in travel distance wise, Thailand, India,
Mhm.
and so on and so forth. But now they have it readily available and they're very much ready for it. And that was also part of ramping up to the World Cup to
Mhm.
do the combination of a healthy lifestyle. We were lucky to have one of the teams staying with us. And once you have a sports team staying with you, and you understand that they have chosen this specific property also because we have fresh nature, water, and a lot of facilities for recreational sports,
Mhm.
then a lot of clients would contact us to see, and would really create a lot of curiosity, or has created a lot of
For
curiosity.
sure. Well, I'm going to come back to that, but
Yeah,
let's talk about what there is for recreation. You are a beachfront resort.
we are.
So is there, things to
We
do in the
have,
water?
yes, there is. We have, first of all, we have nature walks. So
Mm.
you can walk for 3-4 hours in a stretch going to a private island. And on the way, on lucky days, you can see some whales, you can see
Oh,
flamingos.
wonderful.
We have a certain sting rays as
Mhm.
well, according to season and high, low tide. So that's one
Sure.
of the opportunities. We have a whole mangrove there as well. So there's a lot of focus on sustainability. We've hired a marine biologist who will be a manager who will take the guest out for more of wisdom-based educational programs to educate them about the flora and fauna,
Mhm.
paddle boards, bicycles in water, kayaking, lot of sporting activities of interest.
Mhm. How many
In-
rooms are at the resort, overnight rooms?
We have 180. So
Uh-huh.
120 in the family part, which is rooms or suites. And then we have another 60 villas in various sizes up to like royal villas.
What's a royal villa? Like what's involved with that?
600 plus square meters, and with private spa and steam room and everything inside, and several bedrooms. So that's typically for the families who are coming in together. That's very, very common, that when we are having families and a big group of adults, they would come to take that, or high VIPs.
Mhm.
So most resorts nowadays would have some sort of presidential villa for
Right.
their clients. Yeah.
It's interesting that you have more family rooms than villas. Like, so
Yes,
is the marketing geared to bringing the whole family?
it is very much geared to bringing the whole family all together. We're very, how do you say, proud or
Mhm.
honored to be able to offer family wellness in a destination resort, as most destination resorts around the world, they do not offer anything for
Right.
children. So it's we really encourage the families to come and learn together, and to bond and adopt all these healthy activities together. That's also part of the vision. Um, it's really a crucial part of all this family health and intellectual wellness, and for them to also sit as a family and to do all the activities together. So what we do is that we take away their mobile phones. They can keep it in
Oh,
their villa.
uh-huh.
And so it's a complete digital detox policy, which would ensure that parents and children are not engaged on technical devices
Mhm.
when they are doing all these activities together. If they need to have some pictures taken, then one of our employees will take
Mhm.
those for them. But otherwise, there is no flashing of cameras. So this is really to, again, ground as a family, doing yoga together as a family, cooking in our cooking studio so that the family can start incorporating healthy habits is also very popular activities. Some of the guests have even brought in their own personal chefs, for the personal chefs to be trained by our chefs in the cooking, in the attempt of changing, again, the lifestyle. Um, to make such intensive and extensive family wellness programs, we tied up with a company out of the UK called Worldwide Kids.
Mhm.
They made for us 400 activities various
Wow, that's a
indoor
lot.
and outdoor activities. And these are aimed on the various age groups. So from 0 to 4, from 5 to 9, from 10 to 14, and then from 14 and above. And then you will be put in groups with the various kids in the same age group. So that's how we have done it, including agility training, balance. We also do some craniosacral training with them, Reiki training with them as part of the family.
That's so wonderful to get kids introduced to those concepts early. And so it sounds like there's no limit. I mean, babies can come.
Babies can come, yes. We do not offer babysitting service. Most of the parents who require babysitting service would come with their nannies. Otherwise, again, it's about really being there with the kids. So on a day-to-day, maybe on a second note, the facility is run by our in-house psychologist. We call her a children's specialist. That's her title. And she has a team, and we've recruited most of them who has a degree or diploma in pedagogical background and science of some sort.
So do you get any resistance on the mobile policy of taking those devices away?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you?
That's it's something which we tell them in advance. So we do call them and remind them. We do get some resistance. We try to dance around it a bit. And but of course, if somebody is very, very rigid, we will ask them we'll escort them maybe out of the area where there's other guests, so they are not disturbing other people who are following the rules and regulations.
It's funny, we've become so attached that we can't be separated. I mean, that in itself is a very interesting study, that we can't put this device down and just be with ourselves anymore. And I love that you're doing that. Because even grown-ups need to practice, right? That put the device away.
Sure.
So what?
There's still availability in the setting of their own guest room. So
sure, yeah. But it makes sense out in the resort that you want people participating fully and being fully present, which is difficult to do when you're checking your email or whatever, playing games on your devices. People are addicted to. You walk through the world today and everyone is on a device in public transportation, and it's like we're becoming so isolated from each other. I think it's not good for the long term.
Absolutely.
So what do families most like to do? You mentioned the cooking. I bet the kids love that.
Yeah, they love that. It's good fun for them getting their hands dirty. I would say any type of yoga they enjoy as well. Treatments with their parents. So it's usually father, son, or mother, daughter. We have treatment rooms for them as well. That is another popular Pamper, self-times, private yoga classes, and anything which is out in nature is also quite popular.
The nature walks probably are great.
It's a very, would you say, educational property which we have. We do we support the community in general with education. So our team of children's specialists will, in rotation every week, go and visit some of the international and national schools to do free education. Healthy diet and eating, and perhaps they connect with some of the parents and some of the schools who then would like to come and learn more. But we have a myriad of educational offerings on a day-to-day basis. We have a big library in collaboration with Qatar National Library with more than 6,000 books.
Wow. At the resort, so I can go and grab a book. Oh, fun.
You can, yes. And you can take it home with you and submit it in the library in Doha city center. So, and every day, a couple of times a day, one of our doctors or specialists will go on stage to talk about, again, rehabilitation and physiotherapy. The psychologist will talk about mental health. The head of fitness will talk about how to train like an athlete. any of the health advisors will talk about either TAIM medicine or nutrition again, or there are so many topics. So instead of a regular GM's cocktail, which you have in the standard hotels, we have like a wellness mocktail evening every evening.
That's delightful.
Yeah.
So the TAIM, the TAIM approach,
Yeah.
how is that layered in the spa? Like if I get a massage, is there a TAIM element to it?
There would be. We're using a lot of traditional treatments. We are using certain herbs and certain oils which are TAIM inspired according to certain protocols and recipes, which we are still also developing. But a lot of the very, very old ancient techniques of hijama are used. So hijama is blading. So we are actually using razor blades, for instance, for pain relief, which is with both dry and wet.
Wow.
So we're using the regular cups, which you would have similar in the Chinese medical, where you're doing the suction cups. And we also have razor blades treatments, where they're also doing bloodletting, which is also a part of the philosophy that has to be done on certain days according to the moon, according to your health constitution, but that is only after you've had a full-fledged diagnostics by the TAIM doctor or specialist.
That's fascinating.
That's it's as traditional as it can be, and these medical professionals have had many years of training, both in their home countries and also here, in terms of Ministry of Public Health has to go in and recognize their skill set before they land on guests.
Okay, so all of the practitioners are sort of, they have certificates or licenses from the government to do what they do.
So for most of the treatments, such as it's an expat country, more or less. There's a couple of 100,000 of locals and the rest, a couple of millions of expats working here. And all of us, and especially the ones who have to work with their hands or with guests, technically, they have to go through another exam. Whether you're coming from the US or Copenhagen or Bangkok, you still have to go through an additional system and testing. So that's one of the challenges positively which we have here in Qatar, and when you're considering opening a wellness destination resort in this part of the world, is that their legal licensing is quite extensive.
Well, it's good to know for the guests, though. You feel safer, I guess. Where are most of the guests coming from? What is your target market for Zulal?
So our target market is still the whole Gulf countries in general. Another target market, and then of course families in the Gulf. Another target market would be Europe. Many people know of Chiva-Som, and the top three we've always had there would be the UK market, the Russian market, and the German-speaking market. They've been going to Hua Hin in Thailand for the last 25 years. Now it's become more easy for them because flying to the Middle East is only 5 to 7 hours, as opposed to traveling 13, 14 hours to Thailand, and then you have jet lag. There is only 1 hour time difference here. So it's easier to do more frequent trips.
And it's beautiful. I mean, the infrastructure is excellent. The Doha airport is beautiful and modern, and it's just very easy to get around there.
It's quite organized. And I think with the World Cup, especially with such a small country with only a few million people, and then during the World Cup, we had, I think, 1.5 something million people landing up in a tiny little country. People were initially concerned if the infrastructure and the coordination would slide, but they did it to perfection. I mean, there's obviously small bumps here and there, but they did it very, very well.
I was lucky. I came through Doha during the World Cup, connecting somewhere else, and I love how they had the whole airport like kitted out with soccer fields and balls and nets, and I mean that you couldn't
Right.
miss it. I mean, and tons of people, but it didn't feel overwhelmed at any way. If someone
Sure.
arrives not during the World Cup, I assume that you collect the guests at the airport and transport them up to the resort.
We would. So there are different ways. So either it is by car and categories of car, but we also have a helipad. So we
Oh,
can book a helicopter for guests, and that would take you, I think, 20 plus minutes to fly from Hamad International Airport directly to Zulal.
and how long is the drive by vehicle?
Drive is 1.5 hour
Oh, that's
max.
not too bad.
Right,
Not too
between
bad.
1 hour and 15 minutes to 1.5 hours. So reasonable.
So, Sandie, let's talk a bit about how a destination spa resort is different from a hotel resort where you had much of your experience previously. What would you
Right.
say are some of the main challenges in a resort such as yours?
I would say that some of the main challenges is when you build something like that, it would be, it requires a lot of dedication, commitment, time, effort, and also expertise. The payroll of having highly educated employees as opposed to working in regular hotels. Another one of the challenges would be the investments in all, again, the medical devices, the physiotherapy tools, which also is another thing, the licensing, which I touched on a little bit previously. And then the educational part to educate the guest of what we are about if they do not have that much understanding of wellness in general. We still have, as we talked about digital detox, we still have the occasional guest who lands up not knowing that we are a wellness resort and they think we are like any other regular beach resort. So they bring in their burger or their alcohol and all this, and which we do not entertain. So we hold it for them, but we have healthy alternative to a healthy burger, a healthy French fries, and so on and so forth.
Are they upset when they find out they can't have a beer and a burger?
A few people will always get, I think, their nose out of joint a little bit, or get a little bit withdrawal syndromes. Let's put it that way. We do have coffee machines if guests would like coffee, but they're not installed in the guest rooms, only upon request. So anything where there's a high or a little bit of a just a habit of these habituals, when you have to let that go, there will be a little bit of yeah.
Well, that's the idea of a detox, though, right? I mean, not just the digital, but caffeine, alcohol, the foods you shouldn't eat, all of it. I mean, I respect that you're making a firm stand on how the place will be experienced.
Absolutely. Has to be about the authenticity.
Right.
But once the people taste our food and the healthy burger and all, they usually are grateful afterwards and how they feel after they've been through our programs. And that's the biggest reward for us.
For sure.
Seeing it walking out.
Yes. How many employees are there at Zulal?
There is, I think right now we're about 370 employees, where we have, 130 plus in the health and wellness division.
That's a lot.
Which is the core of the business, yes. Rest are...
You had to do a lot of training, I'm guessing. I mean, you did not come, as you referenced, into a place that has a lot of these experts there. I mean, how much longer ahead of opening did you need to be there than would happen in a typical hotel?
Well, COVID hit in, so there was quite a few employees already long time before, but for a wellness destination, it would take a couple of years in advance, usually 1.5 years minimum, for the key departments and especially the health and wellness team to be trained fully. And then you would do a few months of simulation. So depending on your designation and your expertise, anywhere between 6 months to 1.5 years out. also working on the whole FF&E, furnitures and fixtures, and OS&E, the design and construction, and being part of going on site to make sure that the architects and engineers support an organic setup for the team members to work in.
I imagine there were components of Zulal that they had never built something like that before. There was no model for it in the country.
Exactly. And also taking the weather conditions, keeping those in mind. We are straight on the sea as well. So I think we face some of the same challenges as well for building our plumbing and underwater sewage systems as you would do when you are in isolated properties like in the Maldives, in Seychelles, in the Caribbean would face with the very strong wind, the very strong salt water.
So it's a challenge not for people need to have deep pocketbooks if they're going to attempt something like this.
Yes.
So we've talked about the challenges. What about the opportunities of a destination resort? What are you finding there?
Yes, it's been very, very interesting to see the industry, and because I've mostly been working at resort spa, hotel spas previously, the people coming for the destination resorts and the wellness resorts, I have really seen a shift and a transition. So years back, the guest was happy enough to have a consultation by someone with a degree in somatic therapy. Okay, maybe they did a pulse diagnosis, they would do an iridology, or they would read your facial characteristics. They still very much would like that now, but they are also looking for science-based evidence. So a lot of our clients are coming in now and wanting today's cutting-edge science, blood testing, certain nanotechnology advances, and sometimes hair analysis, and so that they have the scientific documentation in combination with the holistic. And we have a few of those services available. And with the blood works also being the new passport to well-being, the guest can really gain a much more profound and in-depth insight into everything from nutrition deficiencies to management of health and lifestyle related illnesses such as cholesterol and diabetes. So it's a very collaborative approach, and it's a very exciting time when you're seeing more of the bridge between the holistic as well into the more evidence-based.
I love the sound of the hair analysis. What do you do? What do you learn from looking at your hair?
Oh, we have specialized doctors. So hair analysis is one part we are incorporating. We haven't actually launched just that part yet, but that's on the list. So it's mostly the blood work and going into some of the genetics.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, what hair analysis adds to the knowledge of the doctors going in. So because we
have a research academy also in Bangkok in Thailand. So whenever we would like to, we have a full-time doctor who sits and does all of the research and development. So whenever there's a new equipment on the market or a new concept we're interested in launching, we would normally affiliate with our corporate office where the research and development specialist is sitting and for the review. Again, everything has to be evidence-based before we launch it. And also to see which supplier would we like to work with, who's there on the market. It's not necessarily the most expensive or supplier who offers the best product.
That's
and then
true.
The licensing to get that product registered and shipped into the Gulf. That's another process as well, unless it's registered already.
Well, it's lucky you have that corporate team to help out in that aspect, for sure. So guests are staying 5 days, many I'm sure longer. So you see at the destination spa that you have an ability to impact them over a longer period, would you say, than at a resort spa?
Absolutely. I think there's so many people post-COVID who are now into really investing in their health, building the immune system, strengthening. So they are, and especially for the mental health, that's something I see in general, much more interest. And also a lot of younger people where we say in destination resorts, prevention is better than cure. So it's about taking advert steps in advance before you get sick and you try to cure. So
it's not a difficult concept, right? And we hear doctors say it all the time. Like I've heard Michael Roizen at Global Wellness Summit saying, you know, whatever 75, 80% of the illnesses we see are lifestyle induced, you know, and could be avoided with simple changes. And a visit to a place like Zulal really helps lay the foundation for those behavior changes, would you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You give people the support, you know, to try a new diet or a new exercise or a new treatment in that kind of environment. And then perhaps they carry on when they return home.
Yes, with 400 plus activities in general in the whole family area. And then we have another 400 activities and services. There should be something for anybody to pick.
I would think so.
Interest, we have a lot on the platter.
That's quite a lot. You needed quite a few visits to get through all 400 options. So
Sure.
Let's circle back to the sports because I was just fascinated by that. So as we've been speaking, Doha was the host of the World Cup, which we all just watched with such excitement. It was awesome. And your resort was chosen to host one of the teams from another country. You know, tell us a bit about why you think they chose you and how they used the resort to their advantage.
Right. So as per my understanding, certain countries or certain teams, also when they host a World Cup in other countries, they choose not to live in the city center. If we have looked previously at World Cups held, there is a lot of noise when you're in the middle of the hustle and bustle of a city, and there would be a lot of fans around and other regular guests staying in the property. Here, they basically had the property and they did a buyout in the whole family wellness area where they had the exclusivity from themselves, and there was, of course, the security and facilities, again, fresh air and nature to really switch off, calm down, ground yourself. Sports teams would travel with their own medical team as well. However, they also travel with an entourage of reporters and coaches and mental coaches and other experts and specialists, which would also avail certain services with us. So it was quite an experience hosting a award-winning team in general. It was once in a lifetime. And
I'd
to
say.
really see the effort and going into a training as such, and how much effort is also put in affirmations and positive thinking and visualization, breathing techniques, more than the actual physical training.
That's fascinating. How far in advance of the beginning of the tournament did they arrive?
They usually arrive about a week before. For this specific World Cup, many of the players were playing in other teams, regular sports team around. So they're already at it, and they would come a week in advance to bond and connect with their own countrymen.
So your typical football, soccer for Americans team, you know, has whatever 25 guys on it, but they took 120 rooms because of all the added, the physios, the coaches, etc.
Exactly, and also for the privacy, I would say, and security reasons and
security as well. Did they eat? Like, where do people eat at the resort, and did the team eat in the same place, or did they have their own?
Yeah, so they had their own chef also, and then a combination with our chefs as well. And of course, a full-fledged hygiene team from Ministry of Public Health who would go in and check all of the areas for cleanliness, hygiene, and so on, because it's absolutely non-negotiable. We can't have anybody becoming ill in hotels, and so a lot of sanitizing and everything went into place. But again, organic food and fresh water and to supplement the healthy lifestyle.
And what about the exercise part? I mean, you don't have a soccer pitch at your property, do you?
There is a soccer pitch, which was a local
wow.
one, which is owned by the municipality of the surrounding area, just 5 minutes away. So they would avail those services. And rest, they would use the regular fitness centers, which we have for their own day-to-day little routine and exercise.
Well, that's excellent that there was a pitch nearby, because that would be a big expense. I mean, do you see this combination of sports and hospitality as something that may grow, that more brands might want to invest in facilities that support professional sports teams?
Very much so. I see, for instance, Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, which is the French soccer team. They have done youth academies for younger students. So they have invested also. I think there is a platform where they were playing in Koh Samui. I heard that few European football teams also went to a few of the other destination resorts in Italy for their rejuvenation. So as a professional athletes, the body is like a Ferrari, and they must maintain to the optimal level during the times of going on the field.
What about things like massages or any of your other treatments? Do sports teams use those, or do they have their own
They
practitioners?
have their own, it kind of varies as per my understanding from colleagues around the world, and which type of sports team they are. If it's footballers or it is hockey players and all, there are certain rules and regulation. I had a colleague who was working in France who recently hosted a sports team there, and the players were widely allowed to take treatments in the regular spa without affiliating with their own medical team first. We offered certain services, and certain services they only take from their own practitioners coming over. So I think it varies from country to country, and the laws for the law of the land and that specific team.
Was it a distraction to have the team there? You know, did it make trouble for regular business? Was it a difficulty?
It was a little bit trouble for, I mean, regular business. There's a lot of people on site, but the whole of Doha, I think in general, if you're coming for a very peaceful destination and then you land up and there is 1.5 something million people walking around in the city areas, and you're stuck in traffic, and also there were a few comments across Qatar in general, in terms of they would have chosen another time to come and during the World Cup, but there was no other time for them.
So were there other guests in the villa part of your resort?
Yes, there were other guests. So certain we had reserved in advance, certain VIP guests, as there was this wall behind with the security, so it was easily manageable.
Keeping the German team, the country team on one side that visited,
exactly,
and the guests on the other.
The regular guests on the other side. Yes.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit, Sandie, about what you see. What have you learned, in your year and a half there, and how do you see the destination, wellness destination, evolving in the next few years?
Right. There is such a high demand in GCC in general, and there's a lot of extensive focus on healthy living and lifestyle in the GCC. So Saudi are opening up some really giga projects, but they are still a few years ahead. And the populations around in the various countries are very keen to try and explore the opportunities in Saudi, but at least we have Zulal Wellness Resort here as well. So we have a lot of curiosity to test and try what is this all about. And yeah, a lot of high demand of, again, being able to support a different lifestyle. So we have other sporting activities coming up. We have a big tennis tournament. We have Asian Games next year. We have F1 again evolving around sport. In March, we have a UN conference. So there are a lot of the bigger conferences which are all based upon mental, emotional health, which are coming up in this part of the world.
It's interesting that we can go there, right? I mean, it used to be, when I say go there, I mean the mental part. You know, we're not just treating people on the surface. We are able to dig deeper now because do you think guests are more open to it now? Like that they realize that it's not just getting a massage that's going to cure their life. They have to go deeper.
They would. So we work with a row or a range of visiting consultants as well, who do various types of healing or hypnotherapy. So there is a big interest in that. So we would have a calendar with 1 or 2 employees from the outside who would come in and offer services, chiropractors as well. So it's an interesting change and way forward. And I feel we have more and more people calling us in general who are keen to go through that educational and wisdom-based part. So seeking peace, optimal peace.
Well, if you're going to choose a resort and you like it to be sunny, you could do no worse than go to Zulal, right? Does it ever rain there?
It rained yesterday for the first time in a year.
In a year. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
in a year. So we have a couple of rainy days in a year, but that's it. Otherwise, the climate is very nice. GCC has a few months where it's baking hot, where people choose not to step out. There's always a high peak season and a little bit of a lower season worldwide. Wherever you are in the world, they have their, But now we are entering those months where people coming from cooler climates would thoroughly enjoy.
Oh, they welcome the heat for sure. So let me ask you one last question, Sandie, about staffing. I mean, do you have much turnover and how do you get new staff when you need them?
So in terms of employee turnover in health and wellness, we don't have very high turnover, to be honest with you, because the core of the business is health and wellness and we live and breathe it. So in that specific modality or division, people like to stay as they are surrounded by like-minded. And what we offer is so profound and there's not that many job opportunities out there. In terms of recruitment, again, as we talked about holistic, we have more and more people who require that specialized skill, such as, for instance, hijama. We only have a few team members who can use the blades, who are licensed to do the blades. So if we have 20 guests in a day who would require that specific skill set, then we would not be able to accommodate it only over a few days. So it's very important to have a rotation of team members and also visiting consultants based out of Doha we can call upon as soon as we have very high occupancy. So that is the second task force. We work with Chiva-Som in Thailand, who would send us task force and vice versa. We have the academy in Bangkok in Thailand, who are also tuning out quite a number of employees and the opportunity to work closely with the Thai community.
Yes, so you have that support system of the mothership of Chiva-Som and the academy to help build it. And obviously Chiva-Som, is a world-renowned facility, as Zulal will be. Are there plans for something else Chiva-Som branded in the world that you know of?
Yeah, there might be a few other projects in the limelight, which
Okay.
I will disclose to you as soon as I
Yeah, we'll keep our ears
have
to
the
the ground
information.
for that. Well,
Sure.
Sandie, I so appreciate you taking time out of managing 120 people, to speak with us. I know it's been a super busy month for you. I hope that January, while you'll be busy with guests, you won't have any media or professional sports teams there, and you can just conduct normal business. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
so much.
And I look forward to seeing you somewhere this year at a
Absolutely.
conference or
Global Wellness Summit is coming to
or
Qatar.
oh, that's
So
right, for sure, for
Yes,
sure.
exactly. That has been announced. So that's another big convention, which is obviously also going to attract a lot of international attention and focus on wellness,
That'll
which
be
is
excellent.
also hosted under the umbrella of the Qatar Foundation, under the same ownership. It won't be conducted on the property, but we will be working very closely for making some retreats before and after.
I'm sure
Hopefully.
I'll be signing up for one of those for sure.
Sure.
All right,
So then,
thanks again, Sandie.
thank you.